Here is the translation with the timestamps removed, organized into a cohesive narrative format. How would Giannis Antetokounmpo play if he time traveled back to the 1,970 seconds? This question, seemingly far-fetched, suddenly became the focal point of the debate after LeBron James, a living legend of the league, declared that Giannis Antetokounmpo could score up to 250 points in a single game if you placed him in the NBA of that era. This statement was made on the Pat McAfee Show, where LeBron James rebutted the opinion that modern stars would struggle if they played in the previous era of basketball, which is often viewed as thorny and tougher. LeBron James used Giannis as the prime example because he is the prototype of a player who converges almost every physical and technical element: height, strength, speed, durability, and an extremely relentless motor. According to LeBron, if placed in a league where fitness, tactics, schemes, and sports science were still rudimentary like the NBA of the 70 seconds, Giannis would dominate completely. However, Giannis himself pushed back with a humble attitude, even joking that if that were truly the case, he'd probably score 275 points. From there, netizens in the basketball community posed a question. If Giannis actually played in the 1,970 seconds NBA, would he totally dominate the league? First, we need to understand a bit about the 1,970 seconds NBA. I'd bet 99.99% of people watching this video weren't alive at that time and haven't directly watched a basketball game from half a century ago in America. The script writer is the same, but through research and watching archive footage, we can confirm the NBA back then was vastly different from today. Not just in terms of athletes' skill level, but in rules, playing style, and tactical mindset. Although the number of regular season games remains the same, 82 games per season, the pace, intensity, and tactical nature of the league have developed in a completely different direction. Regarding the rules, the most distinct difference is the three-point line. This is a feature now considered indispensable on every basketball court, from street ball to indoor arenas. And did you know this line did not exist in the NBA until 1979? This caused the play style of the 70 seconds to focus much more on the area near the basket. Offensive players mainly operated in the paint or the area beneath the rim, scoring via layups, dunks, hook shots, or mid-range jumpers. It was extremely rare for audiences back then to witness a shot from deep or from logo range, something we enjoy almost daily in the current NBA. Because there was no threat from the perimeter, the defensive systems of that time were built to protect the area under the basket. Many players stood dormant in the paint lane camping because they didn't need to rotate out to defend the three-point arc. Conversely, the modern NBA has developed strongly with a spacing play style stretching the formation to create offensive space, especially from the three-point line. Since 2010, teams began prioritizing three-point shots over long twos or shots near the basket because of efficiency and the value it brings. A three-point shot is worth 1.5 times a two-point shot. Along with the explosion of the guy that everyone knows who it is, thank you, Stephen Curry, thank you, Chef, the consequence is that modern defensive schemes are forced to expand, rotate quickly, and frequently switch on pick and rolls or when opponents move off ball. Defensive tactics like zone defense or switch-heavy defense, switching on everything, are now the standard, requiring defenders to have conditioning and versatile defensive ability. Additionally, even though the number of games hasn't changed, the intensity and game pace are currently significantly higher. This comes from the fact that modern players are supported by sports science, nutrition, and recovery technology, helping them maintain peak physical condition throughout the season. In contrast, NBA players of the 70 seconds had to play with much more limited medical conditions and coaching. In short, The modern NBA is a game of speed, spacing, and tactics, while the 70 seconds lean towards physicality, inside play, and scoring in the paint. This difference is exactly why comparing players across two eras is always a fascinating topic, but also highly controversial. So now, drop Giannis into the 70 seconds with what he currently possesses. How would the Greek Freak perform? If Giannis Antetokounmpo transcended space-time to play in the 70 seconds NBA, the probability of him becoming a top-tier star is very, very, very high. However, the path to absolute dominance, as many imagine, including LeBron James's claim that Giannis could score 250 points a game, would not be simple. No, I have to say, it's practically impossible. It's not a coincidence that even in an era of three-point spamming like today, no one has broken Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point record. So let's tentatively understand that LeBron James was just using hyperbole to affirm his point that Giannis would dominate the 70 seconds NBA. Physically, Giannis is clearly a phenomenon. He is nearly 6'11", 211, with a long wingspan, solid muscle mass, yet possesses the movement capabilities of a guard. Quick, agile, and durable. These factors aren't coincidental. They come from a rigorous training process, nutritional regimen, and recovery optimized by the advancements of modern sports science. Meanwhile, players in the 70 seconds, despite having impressive physiques, were not supported by technology and modern knowledge. It's hard to reach the level of comprehensive development like Giannis today. Giannis's play style is also very suitable for the 70 seconds NBA, as the majority of the game focused on the paint. His speed, strength, and slashing ability would be a nightmare for the defenses of that time, which had not yet developed to the level of sophistication we see now. Comparing him to two legends of the same era, Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell, we see many similarities. All three are big men, relying on strength, dominating the paint, and having overwhelming influence on both ends of the floor. Russell leaned towards defense and IQ. Chamberlain leaned towards strength and offensive dominance. Giannis, however, is a two-way player who can also handle the ball, pass, and proactively create opportunities. This would make him one of the most brilliant stars in the NBA sky, not just today, but in any era of the NBA. However, Giannis doesn't have a straight path to dominating the 70 seconds. One of the biggest challenges is the defensive system of that period. Because there was no three-point line, defensive formations often clustered around the paint, the key making the space under the basket extremely cramped. This is a factor that would make Giannis someone who lives on cuts to the basket and breakthroughs face many difficulties. When facing two or three players always ready to stand in the paint, creating a human wall right in the area he wants to penetrate, his scoring efficiency would certainly decrease significantly. Giannis needs a good shooting stroke to stretch the defense and create operating space for himself, something he has shown very clearly recently. Before the 2023 to 2024 season, Giannis's finishing efficiency around the rim hovered around 5'5", 57%. Even though he is still one of the top scorers in the NBA, we can't ignore that stat. But when he has a mid-range jumper, one of the best shots of the tournament, Giannis's scoring efficiency skyrocketed to over 60%. This is thanks to the defense having to stretch out to guard the jumper, creating more open space for him. The problem is, finding a teammate like that in the 70 seconds is almost impossible. That was an era where basketball didn't prioritize long-range shooting. Good shooters were extremely rare, and spacing tactics were virtually non-existent. Giannis would frequently have to eat alone in a cramped area where there were many big physical players playing a rough style. Although he could still dominate physically and skillfully, he would be limited compared to himself in the present. Furthermore, the rules of that time didn't have as many regulations protecting offensive players as they do now. So it's very likely he would be the victim of hard fouls to stop him from stepping to the free throw line. And we know how bad Giannis is at shooting free throws. The players of that time likely would have applied these legendary big man tactics already. Over more than half his career, he averaged 12 to 13 free throws a match, but the legend's efficiency never exceeded 60%. In summary, if playing in the 70 seconds NBA, Giannis Antetokounmpo would certainly be a superstar. But to destroy the league, as LeBron James asserted, the answer is very, very difficult. This statement from the King also touched a nerve with many people. Not a few stars and experts voiced their rebuttals, including Stephen A. Smith, the veteran reporter for ESPN, who believed LeBron James's statement showed a lack of respect for the legends who came before and was somewhat provocative. He believed that deifying modern players by lowering the status of previous generations is unnecessary and easily causes misunderstanding. Meanwhile, Draymond Green, the close friend of the King, agreed with him. Does 55 years of basketball development not change the level of technique, physique, or tactical understanding of players? No one is saying to bring Giannis back to the 70 seconds but force him to play like a player of that time. Not at all. The point is, if you bring Giannis with his current physique, skills, and level back to that era, he would score 250 points. The Warriors star explained that if you put an athlete with meticulous preparation and specialized training like Giannis into a tournament that hadn't yet achieved the modern standardization like today, he would be like a machine among normal humans. And that is exactly what LeBron James wanted to emphasize. As the person involved, Giannis responded skillfully and moderately. He humorously replied, "I think in the 70 seconds, I would score 275 points, not 250. However, Giannis quickly emphasized that he doesn't like comparing eras because every stage has different contexts, training methods, and playing conditions. If I played in the 70 seconds, I would play just like everyone else did back then. You can't compare two eras." Giannis's response shows respect for basketball history while reflecting his humility and deep understanding of the game. Even though he gets praised as one of the greatest players, ultimately, every basketball era carries its own uniqueness, from rules and playing style to the physical and tactical foundations. Therefore, there will never be an exact and definitive answer to the question, can this player succeed if playing in Era A, Era B, or Era C? Such comparisons, while fun, are just hypothetical and cannot be verified in reality. LeBron James saying Giannis could score 250 points in the 70 seconds wasn't for a serious debate, but was a media story. And the show got more views, the experts had more topics to debate, and fans had something to gossip about on social media so they wouldn't be bored. It makes basketball more lively and colorful. And if you really want to see how Giannis plays in the 70 seconds, simple. Turn on NBA 2K, select the simulation mode, choose the classic roster, and try to play so that Giannis scores 250 points with rookie difficulty. Otherwise, there will never be a story of Giannis returning to the 1,970 seconds.